Even as Donald Trump continues to abruptly cancel even softball interviews, Vice President Kamala Harris has agreed to a sit-down, no-holds-barred interview with the Fox propaganda network. And this has triggered Donald Trump into lashing out at both Fox and Harris, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about in this video, but the big news is this. Vice President Harris has agreed to a Fox News interview, and this has triggered Donald Trump. So for context, this is the announcement made by Bret Baier, the Fox propagandist who will be interviewing the vice president, and this is what he has to say.
Hey, it's Bret Baier in Washington. Big interview coming up Wednesday in Pennsylvania with Vice President Kamala Harris. No caveats on the interview. Nobody's seeing the questions besides me. And the topics are going to run a lot of different topics that people care about at home. If you had a list of the things people care about, those topics are going to be asked, I promise, about the economy, about immigration, about things that matter to you. Obviously, things she said before and where she stands now and that evolution where she is, we'll delve down those roads as well. And how she says she is a new way forward as the sitting vice president. We'll talk about a lot of other things. If you have a question that you want to ask Vice President Harris, let us know at Bret Baier on X and Instagram, Facebook, or right here on Fox News. We'll check them out. Anyway, we'll see you Wednesday on Special Report, the full interview.
So before we get into Trump's reaction, I want you to consider what Bret Baier just said. No caveats, no, conditions posed on the question. The vice president didn't say you can only ask me about X, Y, and Z. And Fox didn't offer to only talk about X, Y, and Z. This is a no-holds-barred interview with Fox. The implications of that are staggering. Note how he also says they're going to talk about the economy and immigration in particular, which are two areas that the vice president doesn't poll particularly well, even though she's closing the gap on both. Could have said immigration or democracy, where she has a sizable advantage over Donald Trump and Republicans, but she didn't. He didn't mention that, signaling this is not going to be a softball interview. The entire posture is adversarial. Also note that he said that they're going to be taking questions from Fox viewers. Like, hey, listen, you want me to ask her a question? Contact me, and maybe we'll ask her that. Okay, this is an adversarial interview on an adversarial network. We'll get into all of that. But this was Donald Trump's unhinged response. Lion Kamala Harris has wisely chosen Bret Baier of Fox News to do a much-needed interview because he's considered to be, quote, fair and balanced, though often very soft to those on the cocktail circuit left. I would have preferred seeing a more hard-hitting journalist, but Fox has grown so weak and soft on the Democrats, constantly polluting the airwaves with unopposed Kamala representatives, that it all doesn't matter anymore. Hopefully, the people will understand on November 5th and early voting. Make America great again. Again, Donald Trump is so insecure that he is lashing out at a network that had to pay $800 million, $787 million to be exact, nearly $800 million, nearly $1 billion, because they were so loyal to his 2020 election lies that they defamed Dominion voting systems. And despite the prodigious First Amendment protections which are afforded people, basically the threshold to prove defamation is so damn hard, they settled out of court and paid nearly $1 billion. That's how loyal Fox is to Trump. But Trump is so insecure. Oh my God. What if they give her a chance to answer? What if they give her a chance to explain herself? What if they give her a chance to convey her agenda to the American people? What if it's not just one relentless ass kicking after another? That's what he's terrified of. And I should say, for context, Trump has been canceling interviews left, right, and center. As Judd Legum points out, he canceled a 60 Minutes interview, which is a 50, 60-year tradition for presidential candidates to actually have 60-minute interviews, Republican or Democrat. Trump himself used to observe this. Refused to participate in another debate, even on Fox. We'll get into that. Cut off Q&A and bobbed on stage for 30 minutes. We just did a video about that. It was about almost 40 minutes to be exact, where he had this cognitive episode on stage in Pennsylvania. And then canceled the CNBC interview. We're going to do a video about that as well. So much stuff indicating a severe insecurity and trauma that Trump is experiencing in the aftermath of his brutal defeat at the vice president's hands. But I want to go really focus, I guess, on Donald Trump's antipathy towards Bret Baier in particular. Now, for context, Bret Baier used to be a highly respected journalist. He's probably the closest thing that Fox has to one outside of somebody like Neil Cavuto, who sticks more on Fox business. And I have my issues with Bret Baier. We're going to get into those. But Bret Baier used to be on par, or perceived to be on par, with Shep Smith and Chris Wallace, both of whom who have left Fox, I might add. But even though Bret Baier is obviously adversarial towards the Democrats, it's not enough. I want to remind you of this clip. Donald Trump was asked about a potential rematch against Vice President Harris on Fox, moderated by Martha MacCallum and Bret Baier, the day after he lost brutally to the vice president. Okay, this is what Trump had to say about the potential of a Fox-hosted, Bret Baier moderated debate.
Mr. President, I know when we started the interview, you said that you felt that you won the debate last night, your best ever. I think before the debate happened last night, the Kamala Harris people said that they would actually like to do another debate in October. And I know that last night Fox News sent letters to your campaign and her campaign offering 3 dates of debates moderated by Martha and Bret. One is October 9th in Arizona.
Well, I wouldn't want to have Martha and Bret. I'd love to have somebody else other than Martha and Bret. I'd love to have, frankly, Sean or Jesse or Laura, somebody else. Let's give other people a shot. But I didn't think Martha and Bret were good last night. I thought Jesse was fantastic last night.
So because Martha MacCallum and Bret Baier recognized that Trump did not win the debate against Vice President Harris, which the vast majority of Americans also recognized, he doesn't think that they are sufficiently loyal to him, sufficiently partisan, that he would trust them to moderate a debate. He says he needs Jesse Waters, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity. That's how pathetically insecure this loser Donald Trump really is. I also want to play for context, I think, the true genesis of Donald Trump's issues with Bret Baier. It's not just, the fact that Bret Baier and Martha MacCallum correctly identified Trump as the loser in the debate against Harris. Back in 2023, Trump sat down for an interview with Bret Baier, and one of the questions Baier asked was fairly adversarial, which is good. It's good. By the way, there should be adversarial questions of Vice President Harris as well. It's not just Republicans who should be asked adversarial questions. But Trump did not handle this well, and he was really upset.
2016, you said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that.
This
and we
time,
had tremendous, we had the best economy we've ever had. The world has ever seen.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second defense secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Kennedy, milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So, why did you hire all of them in the first place?
Damn good question, right? For which there is no rational answer. If Donald Trump really is a genius, if he knows how to hire the best people, then the fact that he hired so many people in critical positions in his first administration who have since come out and said that the guy is a moron who's manifestly unfit for the office, either way, it ends at the same destination, which Donald Trump is objectively a loser. Either he hired the wrong people, right? That they were unqualified for the position, but that means that he sucks at hiring people. And given that hiring and delegation of authority is a key component of a successful presidential administration, that means Donald Trump sucks at the job and is unfit for office. Or he did hire competent, effective people, but in their competence and effectiveness, they recognize that he is not competent and effective. And so it ends again at the same destination. Donald Trump is objectively a loser, no matter what. We always win the debate. They will always lose. Donald Trump, those roads lead to the same destination. There's only one destination. Donald Trump sucks. And so there's no good answer to that question. And that's really what triggered Donald Trump. I will say, not to laud or lionize Bret Baier, because Bret Baier also has his issues. As a matter of fact, Media Matters published a really good article about this ahead of the vice president's interview by Bret Baier. 3 damning facts about Fox's Bret Baier. Kamala Harris is scheduled to sit down with Baier for an interview. People unfamiliar should know about his role in Fox's propaganda machine. Harris will sit down with an interview with Fox News chief political anchor Bret Baier on Wednesday, reaching out to viewers of former President Donald Trump's personal propaganda outlet in the closing weeks of the 2024 campaign. Baier's role at Fox is to provide his network with a sheen of credibility by producing a program that largely resembles a traditional newscast. His program prioritizes stories which flatter the right's biases and soft pedals or ignores damaging revelations about Trump. And again, they have links to these for examples. But his presentation is sober, a contrast to the enraged grievance mongering of the colleagues who follow him in the Fox rotation. As a result, Baier has received an unearned reputation for integrity from some journalists at mainstream outlets and provoked occasional fits of anger from Trump, who prefers the sort of obsequious propaganda he's gotten from regular Fox interlocutors like Sean Hannity, Maria Bartiromo, and the late Lou Dobbs. Here are 3 facts about Baier's journalism and ethical standards. The biggest story of Baier's career was an anti-Clinton hit job that promptly imploded. Baier broke what might have been the biggest story in the history of Fox's news division if it had been true. 5 days before Election Day 2016, the Fox anchor reported a string of anonymously sourced claims about FBI probes of Hillary Clinton's email server and foundation, and concluded that the investigations, quote, will continue to an indictment. Baier's bombshell generated hours of coverage on his network as Fox's pro-Trump partisans cheered its potential to swing the election. But of course, she wasn't indicted. Baier urged network executives to keep Fox from calling states for Biden. This is a big one. While Baier would like to move past Fox's history of lying to bolster Trump's 2020 subversion campaign, the Fox anchor is personally implicated in the shocking breaches of journalistic standards, with the obvious ramifications for the coming election. After Fox's decision desk called Arizona for Joe Biden on election night, infuriating the Trump campaign and many Fox viewers, Baier urged network executives to overrule the decision desk in order to make amends. Baier emailed Fox President Jay Wallace on November 5th, 2020, to say that the decision desk's Arizona call was, quote, hurting us and should be rescinded. He texted Tucker Carlson, who worried that the network could lose its audience to right-wing rivals the same day, writing, quote, I have pressed them to slow, and I think they will slow walk Nevada. Staggering. Absolutely staggering. We don't even need to continue the third one. That's the point. Baier is not a neutral arbiter. He is a pro-Trump right-wing journalist. He's just less unhinged than the likes of Tucker Carlson, which isn't saying much by definition. So I assure you, the interview with Kamala Harris will be adversarial, and she knows that, and she's agreeing to do it anyway, whereas Donald Trump is canceling interviews left, right, and center because he's so staggeringly cognitively impaired that he can't do an interview or a debate, even on Fox, even with these people. And so that insecurity and probably the recognition that he is intellectually and mentally inferior to Kamala Harris has him so provoked, so agitated, because he recognizes that in this respect, he is so far behind, and the polls support it as well. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.